Hey y'all.
Did we lose Stephanie again?
Right, yeah, like we lost Stephanie. We lost Steph. I will have hey everyone in the audience. Bit of technical difficulty. Okay, Steph just texted me. She said, I'm here, but I'm watching. Okay, so we're gonna figure out tech is gonna figure out how to get Steph into the room with us. But in the meantime, welcome to the comic book spectrum, pop culture, writing and analysis. It's Steph. There's Steph. So, welcome to our panel. My name is Regine Sawyer. I am the coordinator and founder of the Women in Comics Collective International, WinC for short. We host professional and educational events across the country. I'm also the writer and publisher over at Lock It Down Productions. And we have some great panelists here for you today, and they're going to talk to you about pop culture writing and what's going on in our new COVID world and how we're consuming content and so forth. So we're going to start with, I call her Vanee Smith, but today she's Rolanda Smith. So she's getting her second personality on, so I'm going to let her have that. So starting with Vanee, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey everybody, I am Vanee Rolanda Smith. That's my whole government name right there. Um, I am happy to join you all. I am the West Coast liaison for Women in Comics, and I'm also on the advising board. I also do a little bit of writing myself. Generally, I write children's books. Wrote Great Granddaddy's Greens was my first bit there, and I am so happy to be here. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you. Next to her, Dr. Shamika Mitchell.
Greetings, everybody. How are you this Sunday afternoon? I am, as Regine said, Dr. Shamika Mitchell, but you can call me Shamika. I am faculty with State University of New York, Rockland Community College, and I am a WinC member. And we are excited about our new project coming out this summer. People consider me something of a comics historian, literary specialist, and I'm also something of an otaku. So there's a lot to talk about. I look forward to having this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Stephanie Williams, aka Steph I Will.
Y'all, happy Sunday to everyone that is in attendance. Thank you for being here. I am Stephanie Williams. You might know me as Steph I Will on Twitter and Instagram. I am I guess a journalist because somebody else referred to me that way. So I'm a journalist, pop culture journalist, and I also create and write comics. Some of them are Living Heroes, but What If Though and Parenthood Activate. Some of my work, you might have seen it on Fangirls, Nerdist, Rotten Tomatoes, Marvel, just a couple places. And I think that's it professionally.
Thank you, Stephanie. And last but definitely not least is Valerie Complex.
Thank you for having me, Regine. Everyone on this panel has inspired me, or I have worked with y'all in some capacity. So thank you again. I'm a journalist, like entertainment and freelance film critic, culture critic. I've written for like Playlist, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, and Elle, and some other places. I need to get up on becoming a part of WinC. I know I'm doing a poor job. Every time I try
You're like an honorary member, though.
every time I try to get around to doing it, something comes up or whatever. I'm working on my first graphic novel. It's, I'm looking for a publisher right now, but it's in the queue. It's in the works. So yeah, that's me and what I do.
Okay, great. Thank you again for everyone for participating today. So let's get into it. So our first question is, over the past year, the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely changed the way we consume content. What changes are you excited to see? And is there anything that you'd like to stay the same or quote unquote pre-pandemic? Anyone can jump in.
I'm loving the amount of accessibility. I know that I've been on far more panels than I've been on ever since the pandemic started. But as far as consuming content, I hope that we get more of what WandaVision has given us, Batwoman, some of the newer titles that we're going to get from Black creators, be it through Disney Plus or just pretty much anywhere. Just give it to us all because I want it. And it's just been really refreshing to see these stories that don't use characters who happen to be Black as fodder. So I hope we continue to get more of that. I hope that we continue to get more new and interesting voices as far as the comics and graphic novel spaces. And I feel like we are. Twins was something that I recently read maybe a few months ago, and I loved it. Actually, I bought it for my son, but I was the one who ended up reading it all the way through. So I'm just really loving the amount of Black creators who are getting their just due, especially you, Regine, because like you popped up in DC, and I know that you're not looking for that type of validation, but let's be real, we know what the name carries. So it's just by time that they recognize you.
Thank you. Who else is jumping in?
Can you re-ask the question again, please? I'm sorry. Sure. I was so into her answer.
That's okay. It was a good answer. It was a totally great answer. So, so over the past year, the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely changed the way we consume content. What changes are you excited to see? And is there anything you'd like to stay the same, or AKA pre-pandemic, pre-blip?
Stephanie hinted on it. Accessibility. Like it's been great seeing people who have not experienced film festivals or have never been able to afford to travel or haven't gotten scholarships to be able to participate and be able to build, their portfolio by, just sitting at home and consuming content, digital content and content online and streaming services is improving. It's giving indie creators the opportunity to create and have their work seen by many people, because a lot of people are home. It's not like they're in the street right now. So people are consuming at an overwhelming rate. And as far as what I would like to stay the same, well, I mean, I guess this is a pipe dream because it hasn't stayed the same, but I'd like to see, journalists continue to get the access and opportunity to continue to do their jobs, even if it's digitally, to see films, ahead of release dates and to interview talent. I'd like for that to be able to, because I mean, the excuses that they usually use, like, we're booked up, there's no more room, whatever. Now it's like, okay, so you're telling me you ran out of links. Like, that's not, that's not something that's going to fly right now. So, you know what I mean? It's like, we ran out of space, no more interviews. It's like, they at home, are they really busy? So, I'd like to see a continued fight to keep those things sort of steady, because, it seems like in the last 365 days, a lot of things have done a complete 180. We were having progress in 2018 and it was building and the pandemic hit and everybody kind of just gave up. So we are rebuilding. So that's it.
Totally. No, totally. Doctor.
Yeah, I think one thing I've observed, I could have my data, I'm not sure how accurate the data is, but I think digital comics, web comics have done extraordinarily well in the past year. And I do remember when webtoons first debuted and people, some people were very skeptical, especially for people that prefer the print medium. But I think for the love of comicsology and other digital platforms, that there's more opportunity for people to discover new titles and also keep up with whatever's happening and developing in the story. I know I've seen people talk about how their favorite shops were all closed, because of the lockdowns that were occurring. And then there was even some issue with, it could be Diamond. I remember there was something happening at Diamond last year. And I think some other folks, if they weren't.
They shut down their services.
Yeah, well, I knew something happened. I can't remember who shut down or didn't pay people. Like there was this whole scandal, but you had other, I think, small printers and distributors that also, people couldn't get access to print because things were on hold, but digital content remained consistent as long as the creators were able to put material together. So while unless you were one of the big two, maybe I think Dark Horse, of course, and Image also didn't have any issues, but for the smaller print distributors, I think they also felt some of the pinch or a lot of the pinch. And so people were buying digital. And I think that's not going to change after everything, if it ever returns back to something familiar. I think that the webcomic platform is going to continue to thrive. So that I'm excited for. And I also have been excited for the amount of creative projects that people have decided to undertake while we're in this time. I mean, it's kind of weird to say, but how often do you get to stay home and create, for months at a time? I mean, it's been almost a year to the day that my campus had shut down. And we'll even be remote in the fall, at least I will be. So I think for some folks, if you think about, well, what could you have written or what could you have, started outlining or sketching? I still worked, whereas I know some people lost their wages or housing and other important means of sustaining your livelihood. But for even then, I've talked to some people who decided to take the opportunity to say, well, since I'm going to stay home getting unemployment, I might as well get this comic off the ground. And, you're home for 6 months, 8 months. That's a lot of time, that you could spend towards, some productivity. So, while finding another job or finding other housing. So I've been excited for that too. What I hope remains the same is that the comics community continues to stick together and that folks in fandom keep finding each other and finding their tribes. Because as we see more projects develop and more projects launch, for the love of Kickstarter, I swear they take all my money. It is important to keep those communication lines open within the fandoms that you're a part of. And so you don't feel as isolated, and maybe you'll even be inspired to pursue other projects.
Okay. Vanee is trying to get back in. So at some point we're going to see her and, we'll try to get some of these questions to her as well. So my next question is, are there any topics that you'd like to see covered or you'd personally like to cover that's not being covered right now, for example?
Yeah, I just want more, I don't want to call it regular, but just more stories of Black sisterhood, specifically in the superhero genre, because why would they not hang out? So more,
so true.
But seriously, more kind of slice of life stuff. So of course I will peddle the hell out of that if I can. But I just want to see more of that, more innovation. I hate to bring up WandaVision again, but what they've done in the weekly, what they've done with the weekly formatting, I've been a fan of, because they packed so much into those episodes. They don't need you to zip through them because there's so much content packed into just one 20 or 30-minute episode. It reminds me of reading a 22-page comic, the way that they've structured these episodes. So I'm hoping we get more of that. And I might kick myself for saying that, because some stuff I do just want to binge, but I love going back to just the weekly, every week you watch a new episode. So I just want more creative storytelling. If we're just going to talk I'm going to talk specifically about superhero stuff, then, it doesn't always have to be these high stakes, larger than life things that happen and that they have to deal with. You can tell impactful stories on a smaller scale. we've seen it done before. Fast Color has done this. I just want to see more of that, and also more sci-fi. More Black people in sci-fi. I know we're kind of getting at it with The Expanse, but like, just give me more of that.
I think that we've definitely seen, especially this past year, you've seen a lot of additions to sort of what I would call low stakes cinema. If we're talking, film, you have stuff like Sylvie's Love, and you have Miss Juneteenth, and you have films like Premature, and just things where it's not regular, but people sort of dealing with everyday life problems and not having to deal with trauma and racism and Jim Crow and all this other stuff, which is, of course, a part of our history. But we have other stories too, that make up the Black experience. So I've appreciated seeing a lot more of that. In the comic space, I think it's just important to get more stories out there, not just necessarily superhero stories, but other types of stories in the comic space, like sci-fi stuff. Like my graphic novel is a Western, which I know is not a popular genre, but it's one where we don't really see Black women doing much of anything. And I think not only innovation, but people have to be brave enough to explore and maybe take something that may seem formulaic at first and add some, panache to it. Everything is copied from something, but you've got to add, your own little flair to it and make it interesting. It's not that hard. Like I don't see what the point is of rebooting Frasier when we have all of these people with all of these great ideas in these shows that I would like to see. But for some reason, we just, whiteness just keeps being forced upon us. And it's like, I want to see some other stories too. So.
Valerie, you'll be very happy to know that there is a comic on its way out that is a Western comic, and the protagonist is a Black woman, and she's in charge. It's kind of like Silverado, and someone was sending me a pitch description about a project that's, in development. I can't really say. We can talk off screen if you want to get in touch with the creative team. But yes, there is a comic that is scheduled to drop this year that is a Silverado-esque Black woman protagonist, shoot 'em up Western bang bang.
Also, David Walker.
Yeah.
David Walker has The Hated. And that's a Western with a Black female protagonist. Mm-hmm. He did a Kickstarter last year for it.
Right. And, there is some good stuff out there. And I do love Frasier, but I think, how much can I take of Niles Crane? It gets old. After a while, it's like, okay. I mean, Niles is hilarious, but okay.
They're not really doing that, are they?
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what's old is new. Look, it's like Friends, like they'll all come back, right? Right. Is Eddie still alive? In terms of, what it is that I think I'd like to see, I got to tell you, Stephanie, I don't know if you've been peeking in my window, but I'm actually working on some projects right now that also are like slice of life Black woman comics. So, it'll be interesting to see where they go. One is mine, and then one I'm working on in collaboration with somebody else. One is also science fiction. So that should be fun. And it's set in Harlem. That's all I can tell you. In terms of what I think I really would want to see more of is I'd want to see more collaboration between folks. And what I mean by that is, every Comic-Con that I've ever been to, there's always a panel on someone's going to steal your ideas. Someone's going to steal your ideas. Don't talk to people about your ideas because someone's going to steal them. yes, those things happen. But if you try to do a comic that's creating you, starring you, written by you, edited by you, colored by you, penciled by you, you're working in a vacuum that's not really getting the creative diversity that's possible. I tell someone it's like people who say, oh yeah, I wrote a movie, starred in the movie, and I also edited the movie. I did the soundtrack for the movie. It's like, okay, let's talk about whether or not there's anybody else that can contribute something good to this project. I wound up finding some phenomenal talents that, I brought in for some projects, or people that tap me for projects, whether they're in the US or not. I think that there's, especially with the digital age, there's tremendous opportunity for people to build relationships and collaborate, and I would like to see that happening. I'd like to see that happening more, I think that it's very easy, especially for creatives, to get in their bubble. And then it's like, no, I'm in my bubble. But, the best person that you may want to collaborate with might be in Lagos, or might be in Rio. And there now with technology, there's, it's much easier to make those bridges and connections. And so I encourage that. And I also, I'm also open to those possibilities for my own projects.
Okay, dope. So Vanee's back. Yay! Ow. So we're gonna give you some questions so you can catch up.
I was never here. I was never gone. I could see me the whole time, and I was talking, and I was like, "Wait, why is Shamika talking on top of me? What's going on?" It wasn't. That's when I realized something was wrong.
Oh my God! Well, we're glad that's fixed and done and handled. So, do you have anything that you want to add to the conversation? Because I know you missed like 2 questions.
No, I heard everything actually. I was gone for all of 60 seconds.
All right, okay. Give it to us.
To the start, I think I would just say the one thing that I do miss is of course, the same thing everyone else misses is the opportunity to see other Black professionals in real life. That was always so affirming for me because we were always so far away from each other. I'm on the West Coast, and almost all of y'all are on the East Coast. And it's just a minute ago when we were first starting, Valerie was just like, oh, we haven't seen each other in forever. It's been forever. So I do miss the ability to be in proximity to other creators of color. That was always something that I would cherish, going to San Diego Comic-Con, all those things that we did. I would always cherish all that. So I miss that part, but I do very much think that, the access that this has created is something that we should hold on to. As an educational scholar who wrote about educational debt, she spoke a great, Dr. Gloria Latson Billings, she spoke a great deal about the educational debt that America owes the people of color. And she talked about how it would take a literal crisis, and she wrote this probably 20 years ago. It would take a literal crisis, a little rebooting, a bankrupting of the system in order to have an opportunity for education to pay back what it owed for children. That would be the only way to restructure education. And so as educators, because I'm a teacher, we find ourselves in that place right now. And I feel like the same thing happening in the creative world is literally it would literally take a crisis, a bankrupting of the entertainment world, of the comic books world, to be able to be fair and to be equitable to people of color and to minorities. It would take literal crisis. And then here comes COVID. COVID said, hold my beer. And we're having a literal bankrupting of the entire system. And finally, folks are able to do what they need to do. And people, you'll even have a moment to create, which people don't understand is an equity issue. Most women don't have the luxury in regular life to sit around and create all the time. We can't live in our mama's house that's been in our generation for years, or we can't do so many of the things because we have to do, as we all know, we all working twice as hard, being twice as good, as Papa Pope said, and all our mamas told us too. And so we never have the freedom. It's not moving because the battery's not in, baby. My point exactly, being mom right now. Well, we are always wearing so many hats, and Corona let us for a second take off some of those hats. Now, for many of us, it came at great cost, at great cost. But if it does reset and reboot the system, and it does allow for a little less gatekeeping, a little more access, a little more freedom. I've written more in the last probably 3 months than I have written in years because I got to take off my commute. I'm teaching from home, y'all. And I started adding up how many hours of my life I spent. Y'all live in California. You know how many hours I spend on the road coming to and from work? I now get to absolutely police my own time because what you're not going to do is tell me what I'm about to do on my time in my house. When my shift is over, it's my house. And so it's allowed me to have a little bit more power over that, which has allowed me the freedom to create, which I think people take for granted for women of color, that we have that same freedom as everybody else, and we just simply never have. So it is not, I don't want to say it evened the playing field because that's not a thing, but it has certainly given us a little space to catch up. And that I can say, I hope that stays.
And it's like, it's not to, agree with you. It's not like, the work is only confined to a couple of months, where like right now, Black History Month, people reaching out to me because they pretend to give a crap about what I have to say this month. But like, it's been a sort of even playing field where I'm getting solicited for work, often now, because we're all at home and many, many things need to be done at once. Also, the in-person aspect, the reason why I am in the position that I am now is because of in-person connections and networking. Being allowed to work in a network in person has helped me a lot, and make connections and get me the things that I need. Meeting people on Twitter and responding to emails isn't as easy as if you're at a party and they're like, oh, there's that person that runs that thing and let me introduce you. I mean, that can be done through email, but everybody's email is probably 1,000 deep in the inbox, and it's easy for your work or your email, your inquiries, whatever, to get lost. And then for people to blame it on the pandemic, right? Not because, they're actually busy. Oh, the pandemic, I'm bit, yeah. But so I think those two things are sort of, a pro and a con. And yeah, just want to throw that out there.
No. Y'all saying it, y'all spitting it. We hear you, we receive you. But to continue on the vein of the last question, and this is for our academics, what conversations in academia in terms of what's being covered in pop culture is happening? Dr. Mitchell, Vanee, you the academics.
I was getting ready.
Just feel like we don't know if we want to talk about this right now.
I didn't want to talk over Vanee.
Go on, doctor. I tip my hat.
Well, I guess I'll speak to the higher ed side. And so, like I said, I'm at State University of New York, Rockland Community College, and I've been at the college now almost 15 years. So one thing that I know SUNY has as an initiative in particular has been diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they have an initiative called 64 at 64. And we have 64 campuses, and then there are the different initiatives relating to DEI outcomes. And so they've been spotlighting every campus in relation to these diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And, some campuses have made significant progress and other campuses are still pulling it together. I can't speak for higher ed as a whole, but I have seen some of my colleagues at other university systems or other private campus colleges, universities, that they have also started to push forward and really stand by DEI initiatives, which is, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They've also been reframing some of their administrative structure and their curricular outcomes and initiatives relating to DEI. And so this way they can see how much they are in compliance or where they need to grow and which directions they need to go in. You can still have a predominantly white institution that has enacted these initiatives. It's really a matter of how the institutions are standing by those goals and pursuing those goals. So it's not, we need more faces in these spaces, as opposed to how much infrastructural support do we have to make sure that there's a holistic view to diversity, equity, and inclusion in the curriculum, and then also in the administration and infrastructure. So I can say, at least on the SUNY side, I am also a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion working group.
But I have a quick question. I have a quick question for you, just in regards to some of the essays you've done. Really, that's kind of what I was kind of like trying to get to, was some of your pop culture essays, specifically the one that you did recently for Whiteness and Superheroes. What is the name of the title of?
Unstable Masks. Unstable Masks, Whiteness and American Superhero Comics. It came out with the Ohio State University Press, January of last year.
So how was that received, like in conjunction with some of the things you were saying in terms of like diversity and inclusion,
right? And so,
conversations in academia?
Great question. So in terms of the way that the initiatives have shifted for institutions, that book, when it came out, we even won an award for that book. I was one of the contributing writers for that. It was edited by Martin Lund and Sean Gines, who are both established comic scholars. And it was a big project when it first came together. When it dropped last year, just before the pandemic, it had, this little buzz, and it was getting some attention on Amazon. Then the hate came from people about like whiteness in comics and how dare you, right? And then the pandemic came. And so it was one of those, okay, we'll see how it goes. It wound up getting on a list for notable projects, and it was an academic review, so that was good. But now with this whole DEI initiative that many campuses have pushed forward, now the book has achieved even more interest for people. And so I think there's a way in which folks who've been doing the work that's really DEI in its origin, now our work is becoming important or becoming more valued, even though we've been doing this and staying in this lane, for however many years. Now people want to hear what we have to say and maybe take our suggestions to heart. So in the case of that project, now, people will order it for their libraries. They'll put it on their syllabi. They may want to have a speaking engagement, have those conversations with art students and with literature students. But, I think that's a part of the way that the conversation evolves. And so you never know when the work that you're doing is going to become socially or politically viable. And as long as you're staying true to what you believe is important, it may eventually find its way onto that platform. And that's just what happened in this case. But it's the same with like economics folks that were talking about unsustainable spending projects. And then like a crash happens 20 years later, and now all of a sudden everyone wants to read their paper or read their book. So in this case, it was just more timely. And I hope it stays consistent in terms of people studying whiteness or studying DEI initiatives and being able to apply it across the curriculum in the way that we have.
And just really quickly, what was your essay about?
I wrote about the milestone universe. I particularly wrote about whiteness in Icon. It was the Worlds Collide story arc, the first one. And so that is what my particular chapter was about.
Okay. So really quick, Vanee, did you want to quickly add something to that? Because it looks like we have a ton of questions in the Q&A.
I just want to say I work in public education, so it's a completely different sphere. Public education right now is a war zone. It's a literal war zone right now. And unfortunately, the children and teachers tend to be the casualties in this war. But what has happened with this transition, the pandemic is it has emboldened people to a new level, and that's both good and bad, because you're seeing people being emboldened on both levels. And we all know what the Trump administration did to embolden all of the Nazis and whatnot in our, our everyday world. Sadly, a lot of them are your children's teachers. And so what has happened is everyone has suddenly gotten, you know how they do. We know how we all do. So everybody starts keyboard cripping. Everybody is crip walking on the keyboard, and this includes educators. And so it's been very interesting. I do equity work. That's what my job is I'm a trainer. I train people in anti-racist equity practices, educational justice. And so suddenly, though, but there's now a very loud contingency of teachers who are pushing it, particularly a younger generation who are like, nah, we don't have to worry about, tenure and whatnot, because now we're in my world now. We're on Twitter now. So the younger generation, the teachers are coming out and they are pushing for equity. They're pushing for more inclusion. I've never seen. I don't know how many librarians you guys know, but if you are a creator, you should get to know librarians. They are your biggest fans. The librarians have gone bananas. They are pushing for all the inclusive books, every inclusive comic. When I say my librarian just said, put it on a list and buy it, just put it on a list and buy it. Because librarians, they just want your kids to read. They don't care what they read. They don't care if it's a superhero with an afro. They don't care if she's wearing a dashiki. Is it going to help Jamal read? Give him the book. And that's where librarians are like right now. Librarians and English teachers are like pushing this in education right now. A librarian, give her a hug. And also, if you have a book, let her know. Because librarians are out here like leading this fight for equitable content, which means kids are now getting pop culture and things like that in the classroom now. We literally just got a new program. We're using Sora. Schools have been using Sora for a long time, but my students now have access to so much manga and anime and the things that they love. And now I don't have to make silent reading is no longer hard. Reading time is no longer hard. My kids can't wait. They're like, can I please, because I'm halfway through this book of One Piece, can we please? And I'm like, read it, honey. Pick it up, boo. They want to know what it is. My kids, man, when I tell you, my kids are watching WandaVision. So you know what they want to find? Are there any comics in there with Vision in them in it? Yep. Y'all, I work in the hood. I work in San Bernardino on Baseline. I work on the Hostro. I work in the hood. Okay. And these kids want to know because they are in pop. They watch the same things that we watch. They want to know, they seen Regina King killing it on TV, and they're like, wait, that's a comic book? Can we read that? Yes, sweetie, you would like to read this very complex political text? By all means. And so the revolution is happening in the classroom, and people just don't know it. People have no idea. They're in the class, in their house, because, I'm on camera with the kids. I can see in your house. You have, a Confederate flag hanging in the background, but your kid is in here with me. And so things ain't what you think, and you don't even know you're raising a revolutionary. But putting these things in our hands, putting this creative content in the hands of our children, letting them see people who look and sound and think in different ways like them and different from them is just changing the entire atmosphere. I work in a middle school. A few years ago, LGBTQ would have been unmentionable in my job. Kids would not have admitted it ever, because now it's part of pop culture. My kids are so just comfortable with it now. And all it took was pop culture, the people who were in the gate doing the gatekeeping, to open the doors and say, we can talk about this and we can make it normal. My kids are cool with it. My kids will correct me. Actually, it's they, Matsalia. Cool. Actually, that's the name. That's my dead name. I need you to call me this. Cool. I got you. And it's not a big deal. And it's because educators, librarians, people are pushing in modern pop culture, letting kids see that it's okay to be who they are, letting little Black kids see that you can be a Black kid and super, you can be a Black kid and a genius. Thank you, Shuri. You can be a Black kid and all these other things. You can be Latino, you can be whatever and still be important in a narrative. and it just opens up worlds. And I can literally see the difference in the classroom. I can literally see the difference in the lives of children. And if you ask me, that's the most important thing that we do in pop culture. Now, I know everyone, as a fan, I know for fans, we want to argue about continuity and all this other stuff. But as a teacher, I could care less. The thing that I see is the lives of children being changed because of these little silly characters that we put in funny costumes and give superpowers or put them in interesting situations that are now telling children that my identity is okay and I can walk proud in who I am. I can be proud of my background. Oh, wait a minute. There's African gods in these stories. Let me find out. Who are these people? And so now I get to see literal worlds change in front of my eyes, which is why I'm so passionate about equity in this field. I'm so passionate. I'm sorry, I know I'm going off, but this is what you work with children. You work with children in the hood and see what a book does to change them, and you'll be just as passionate as I am. This is life for me, and that's why I need every door opened. I need every creator of color out there. I need everybody who is not a straight white male person putting out something, because you might be speaking to one of my kids. You might be the one who opens up the world for one of my students and changes everything for them. That is why it matters to me. Yes, I'm a fan. Yes, Monica Rambeau is goals. Yes, Living Heroes is my stuff. Go ahead, Stephanie. I love it. I mean, I read it and I was just like, yes, Lord. But it's not about me. It's about them. And my entertainment, it does not matter anywhere close to as much as their world being changed. And that's why, as I say, I'm a professional fan.
Yes. Thank you. Pastor Vanee Rolanda Smith. Okay. On this Sunday. Okay. So we only have a few minutes left. But we may be able to get to one question. One question someone did ask is, what is WinC? WinC stands for Women in Comics Collective International. We are an international organization that help marginalized folks brand themselves and market themselves. Also, we do professional educational events such as workshops, art shows, the whole gamut. There's actually a link on the Virtuous Con platform right at the bottom. You can click it to learn more about us. It says Women in Comics Collective International. Also, really quickly, this question is for everyone. Where can we find you and your work?
I finally have a website. So go to whystuff.com, and that's WHYSTEPH.com.
You can find me on, I finally have my own website too. It's ValerieComplex.com. I'm on Twitter as Valerie Complex and Instagram as Valerie_Complex. That's it.
Who's next?
Vanee,
you're muted.
But I can't, yeah.
No, you're muted. We still see you on mute. Shamika, you go.
Okay, I just put my info in the chat at Mutant X Factor on Twitter and also on Instagram. And you can always just message me either place.
Valerie?
I think I'm seeing it in the chat now. Somebody's typing up links, but it's it's Valerie Complex at everything pretty much. I'm pretty easy to find. So I try to keep it streamlined, non-confusing. So.
And I put the Women in Comics link in the chat as well as the Lock It Down link. Vanee, where can we find you?
If Vanee's mic isn't working, can maybe type it in the chat?
Yeah, you can find Vanee at Blurred Galaxy. But
Blurred Galaxy.
Vanee forgot to mention that Blurred Galaxy, she's the editor at large at Blurred Galaxy magazine. She's also working on projects with Dr. Shamika Mitchell at WinC. You want to tell the folks what we're working on real quick?
Yes, we are going to be debuting our WinC magazine. It's going to debut June 20th of this year.
Lord
willing. Lord willing. And we are accepting submissions from members and non-members of WinC. The member submissions are already open as of the 4th or 15th of this month. And then non-members, they open on March 1st. And also all contributors will be compensated. So if you're looking for a paid gig, check us out. We are taking comics, we're taking prose, short prose, and poetry. So as long as your work is completed and hasn't been published elsewhere, by all means, go to the website. I know we've been circulating it, but you can find it on the Women in Comics website as well. And we'll be going through the submissions after, let's see, the deadline is April 30th. So you do have some time to pull your project together. No pitches, no portfolios, just your work.
So again, I want to thank everyone for joining us at this panel today. So sorry for all y'all that we didn't get to some of your questions. You had some awesome questions out there, but we were getting into it again. Pastor Vanee Smith-Matsalia took us all the way down to church. So we all just went there with
Comics Church and Black Church.
All right.
For the questions, if it's something that we can maybe address on social media, by all means, we can do that.
Absolutely. So take care and we will, y'all. Thank you so much to Virtuous Con. Thank you so much for having us. We really, truly appreciate you. And again, you can click the link on the Virtuous Con site. On the bottom is Women in Comics Collective International. Learn more about us and take care, y'all.
And shout out to the SDCC Comic-Con Museum. I am a founding member, and they are also going to have some phenomenal projects lined up when the museum opens next year. And if you aren't a member, you need to join, just like you need to join WinC. And we also have really good bingo at both SDCC Museum and at WinC. So you want to play some bingo, win some swag, check us out. Christine is in the chat, and she's also from the Comic-Con Museum. So thank you very much.
Much love, y'all.